Policy Board Resolutions 5 through 7-2022. Covered a lot of information in those two committee meetings, as you can see. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask.
Any questions for Gary?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for the report. Citizens Advisory Boards.
Hey everyone, I'm reporting from the web. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Barely.
Oh, really? Okay, hold on.
I think it's the air conditioning blowing.
Oh,
Okay, we can hear you.
okay, awesome. So this is the Citizens Advisory Board report for June 6th, 2022. So since the last General Policy Board meeting, the Citizens Advisory Board met in April and in May. In April, the Eastgate GIS Systems Planner, Jeff Gorner, provided information on the purpose of the decennial census, as well as a demonstration of the data that's currently available and some tools that the census makes available. Additionally, Board member Lynn Anderson led the board in a discussion regarding regional tree planting policy. In May, the board heard 3 presentations, including an overview of the Transportation Improvement Program from Eastgate Transportation Engineer Steven Zubik, information on events and efforts related to the agency's broadband initiatives from Mark Ragazine and Steve Christian of Eastgate, and lastly, a summary of the WRTA Transit-Oriented Development Plan from WSP, the engineering firm conducting this study. The board continued their discussion on regional tree planting policy and voted to share information with the communities present at the General Policy Board meeting. The board asked that local communities in the Eastgate planning region consider the following policies. Development plans should prioritize the preservation of large and old growth trees as they're the most effective at sequestering CO2 and provide natural stormwater benefits. Land development should avoid draining of wetlands or artificial rerouting of them. Development projects should incorporate on-site tree planting to contribute to the improvement of the local tree canopy, and implement a policy requiring the use of an expert consultant to develop a tree planting plan for roadway improvements and land development projects. This past quarter, the CAB passed Resolution 005-2022 and 006-2022 and 007-2022. The CAB is scheduled to meet on July 7th and August 4th. And this concludes the report of the Citizens Advisory Board.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Samantha Yanucci? Okay, we appreciate your report, Samantha.
Thank you.
Finance Executive Committee, as I said, Mr. Kinnick is not here today, and so we did not have a meeting this morning as we usually do right before our General Policy Board meeting. We have a meeting scheduled for Thursday when he will be back, and I suppose we'll give an update on that meeting at our next meeting. So now we'll go ahead and go into the business meeting. We have a presentation with an overview and review of various Eastgate initiatives. So we'll start with Ken Simpson as the Director of Transportation. If you'd like to give that to us, Ken, please.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, it's good to see faces again. Hopefully we get back to the start of normalcy again, but let me just take a couple minutes here real quickly, just kind of give you an idea of what's going on really outside of our day-to-day operations, our MPO planning, our economic development, ARC. This is, I guess, what I always like to say is we go above and beyond what we typically do. Some of our funding grant opportunities out there that we currently or have currently applied for or in the works. Force Race, the old Tiger, the old Bill, $24.5 million, 100% federal ask. Lordstown, North Jackson, Mahoning County, Trumbull County, 8076. I think we're all familiar with that project as we move forward. We will hear something in August. Hopefully it is successful and we move forward with those improvements up to benefit both Mahoning and Trumbull County. One of the newer ones that you may not have heard of from us, but is our YES initiative. It's the Youngstown Equitable Sustainable Streets Initiative. Again, going back to the old Hubbard Arterial days, you know, we have the east side of Youngstown along with up up in Trumbull County with the 304 and 80. Very underutilized, we feel underutilized area, not only from a housing, but land development, connection from 62 up Elbert Street to 304-80. So what we did there was a congressional discretionary funds. We submitted a $500,000 ask to Senator Brown's office. Hopefully we'll be successful with that, and we should find that out sometime late this fall. Another one that we've partnered with, actually two, with ODOT District 4, track is back. That's, something that we really haven't heard of anything. Track kind of went away, but now they're back. We partnered with ODOT District 4 to submit a track application this year for improvements along US 224, about a $5 million ask through Boardman Township, Canfield, and Poland. Another one through ODOT District 4 Safety is our Glenwood Avenue Safety Road Diet. We've partnered with the Mahoney County engineers. We piecemealed most of the funding together through STMAC, through our STBG. This is just another funding source that we're going to go after. I think it's around a $3 million ask through the ODOT Safety Program. So we'll be submitting that, I think, in September, but hopefully we'll be successful there. Maybe some ongoing studies. We have one that started back in November, which is the LIVE. It started out as the Lordstown Smart Logistics Hub. We found out that as we move through, it's much bigger than that. It's not just Lordstown, it's Niles, it's Warren, it's Youngstown. As you see, the YES initiative kind of spun out of the Lordstown Now Live Zone initiative. We currently have a draft plan of that that's done by Michael Baker. Internally, our stakeholders are reviewing it, and I'm sure that at our next general policy board meeting, we'll be having a full presentation on that. Another study that's ongoing that started back in January is our regional utility coordination plan. This was something that we used out of the GM funds money that Eastgate received to take a look at better coordination when areas deal with utilities. Again, that one there is also, we just received the draft, I think Friday. So once we internally review it, we'll have it out there for everyone to take a look at. Piggybacking on, as our funding grant opportunities are out there, we were fortunate to get both Senator Portman and Senator Brown in our office for a roundtable discussion. Senator Portman was in a couple of weeks ago. Senator Brown was in Friday, had a great discussion. They're both aware of all of our initiatives and the need for the funding to come back to our area. Also, I believe Jim will be participating in the DC fly-in. So another opportunity for Jim to go down and, shake the bushes and talk to the people to make sure that they're aware of our raised YES grant opportunities. We have a couple upcoming conferences down in Columbus. The National Association of Regional Councils is actually having their conference, going to be held in Columbus. We'll be participating in that. There's also a Ohio Conference on Freight that Eastgate will be participating in. One last thing I do want to bring up, if you have seen, and it usually comes through, well, it probably doesn't come through Eric, but Eric puts these notices out, and if you see it through your emails, just kind of give you an idea of what we're trying to do. So as you're aware, the IIJA has a number of discretionary funds. So as the NOFOs come out and we find out that they're out there, we're trying to get the word out. So our latest one here is the SS4A, which is the safety for all. So you'll see this email it'll give you information. It'll point you in the directions of where to apply or how to apply or if you want to apply. I would suggest call our office. You know, we'll help you through. We'll help you as much as we can. So that's just a note that, you know, if you see something like that, that's what we're trying to promote, that, hey, this may interest you. It's a funding opportunity. Take a look at it. If you're interested, give us a call. So, that's kind of what I just wanted to cover. If there's any questions, I'll be here, for the rest of the day. And, thanks.
Okay. Any questions for Ken? Okay, thanks for the update.
Yep.
Okay. So next we have a status on the Mahoning River Dam removals and the Water Resource Restoration Sponsor Program. So we'll let Joanne give us an update on those things.
Good morning. Glad to see everybody in person again. Okay, I'm going to quickly go over the status of the cleaning of the Mahoning River. And up there is just a list of all the projects. As you can see, 7 of the 9 have funding committed to them. The Lowville is completely done, and right now they're working on the Riverfront Park. They have a library already completed, bathrooms completed, and they're looking for money for paving of the parking lot, picnic tables, a pavilion, and a walkway. So they're moving along really well. If you ever have a chance to go look, it really is beautiful there. Struthers is going well. They should be completed with their dam removal and the river restoration by the end of this month. And then they'll start working on projects for along the river. And just as a side note, to let you all know, we do have a task order to help write the grants that you need for these projects. So if anybody has grants that need written, please contact us. The next is the City of Youngstown. The funding is all committed. They shortlisted their design build teams, and they're starting to request proposals from them now so they can select a team. Once that's done, they can begin the design work this year, and next year, hopefully they'll be in the river starting to remove their 3 dams. First, of course, all the sediment has to be removed, and then the dam removal, and then we'll start again with along the river banks for some improvements. The City of Warren has a design build team already selected, and they're working with them on their contract, and they'll begin their design this year. And next year at this time, they should be in the river starting the sediment removal and the dam removal. Leavittsburg Dam has approval for their funding, and they're starting all the processes they need to go through and completing all the required documents. And next year at this time, they'll be picking their design build team and starting the design. And then Warren Township, we're working with the industry along that dam. They use it for their, they use the water from the river for the industry, and we want to make sure we don't do anything to hurt their business, and we're doing some additional engineering work before we apply for the funding. So that one is, hopefully next year, this time we'll be applying for WRSP funds. The Girard Dam, we're working with McDonald's Steels for the same reason. They use the water from the river for their industry, and we want to make sure when we remove that dam, they're whole. But we're also working with the Army Corps of Engineers to do the work because of the price tag is more than we can handle just with WRSP funds. So that's the update on the river. If you have any questions. Yes.
So there's 7 projects listed in the chart, but there's 9 red dots. Are some of those projects for 2 different dams in the same community?
Youngstown has 3 dams, and yeah, they're the only ones with 3. The rest of them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Zook's going to give us a quick update on the Appalachia applications.
Yes, I'm going to take this opportunity to give you a quick update on our Appalachian Regional Commission program, which we refer to as ARC. This is the time of year in which our competitive process is open for pre-applications. And so that period started at the end of March, and then applications were due on May 16th. In order for a project to be funded through the ARC program, it must meet at least one of the ARC goals. There are 5 of them. First are projects that support our entrepreneurs and businesses in creating and retaining jobs. Second would be projects to improve a competitive workforce, such as increasing access to healthcare, workforce development, education, training. And then third, we look at projects for infrastructure, and that would follow along the lines of water, sewer, broadband, and access roads. And then we also look at projects that support economic development in our natural and cultural resources, such as our tourism industry, Appalachian wine country, our parks and recreation here locally, and certainly our restaurants too. And then the last one is our projects that are for leadership development and community capacity. So this year, projects were due on May 16th, and we actually had 16 applications, which is the largest number that we have had. Typically, we receive about $1.2 million per year on projects. And this year, we're expecting additional funding, although it is not finalized at this time how much we'll be receiving, but that determines how many projects that we are able to fund. We did receive projects from each of our 3 counties, and that was requesting approximately $3.7 million in ARC funds. So even if we get $2 million, obviously we're not going to be able to fund all of them. They did have a total project cost of about $27 million. And our scoring committee met last week. We're beginning our review process. And next general policy board meeting, we'll have a resolution for you to review and approve. Of course, it will also go through our technical advisory committee and our citizens advisory board. So that is what I have for you at this time. I also wanted to mention, if you have any questions, certainly we're always here available for you at Eastgate. Also, our website is excellent. It has information about the goals, the projects, and things like that. Jeffrey did a great job of mapping all of the projects that we've done in the last 5 years. So obviously the project is getting, or the program is getting a lot of attention, a lot of additional funding, and we appreciate the support from our local and federal legislators. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, next we have an update on Eastgate's 2023 Planning Grant Program and the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Justin Mondock, that's Regional Planner, as well as Stephen Zubik, Transportation Engineer. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So a quick update on our planning grant program. You may remember last year we did a funding round, the fiscal year 2022. Those projects are all wrapping up. We're working with those groups to make sure everything comes in nice and smooth, and we close out that grant funding cycle. But for this funding year, we decided to do back-to-back funding rounds just because of the level of interest from last year. And I'll go through this program real quick. So April 1st was the application deadline, so about 2 months ago. We received 7 applications for a total funding request of $79,524. So obviously a lot of demand for this program, still remaining competitive because we only made $30,000 available for these funding rounds. So our scoring process this year was a little bit different. We utilized the capacity at our technical advisory committee and our citizens advisory board to reach out to them to get feedback on the applications that were submitted and think through some things that we should take into consideration when reviewing these projects to make sure that we're making the best and most informed funding recommendation that we can. And when it was all said and done, we had 3 applications kind of rise to the top, and that we are recommending for funding today for a total amount of $38,500. What you'll notice is $8,500 more than we made available in the allocation. So, we conferred with Jim Kinnick and got the go-ahead to make that increase. So that's kind of how we've written up the resolution that's before the policy board today. And just some quick information about the projects themselves. This is a quick map to show kind of the spread of locations for project area for the applications that we received. So I know in the last funding round, Trumbull County communities, we saw a little bit of a lack of participation there. So happy to see some projects come in from Trumbull County this year. And these were the 7 communities that applied, how much they asked in grant request, what they were putting up in local match and total cost. And these are the 3 communities that were recommended for funding this year. So Boardman Township has a Boardman Park Connector Trail that they applied for. City of Niles with the 422 Corridor Complete Street Feasibility Study, and Liberty Township with a project that will look at improvements to the north segment of the Belmont Corridor. I will reach out to those 3 communities to start the process after the policy board votes on the resolution. And the communities that are on this list that are not recommended for funding, I'll still be making contact with to make sure that we can kind of make your projects whole and figure out how we can still advance these. Maybe not through this specific program, but maybe there's other opportunities. There's always other funding programs or other things in the works that we may be able to plug these ideas into to make them a reality. So I will be following up with everyone following this meeting. So if you're on this list, keep an eye out for an email from me. Like I said, funding recommendations are outlined in the resolution 008-2022 up for vote today. Any questions on the program for this year? So I will move on to the Metropolitan Transportation Plan information. So we heard kind of Ken and Joanne talk about maybe some more specifically focused projects and initiatives that are ongoing at Eastgate. The MTP is a more regular thing that we do here. So for those of you that maybe haven't been around as long, I'll catch you up and describe kind of what the MTP really is. So this is our long-range transportation plan that covers Mahoning and Trumbull counties. We're looking out 20 years into the future. And every 5 years we go through this process. So we're either developing a new plan or updating the previous one. This time around, we're creating an entirely new plan for 2050. And this ensures that we continue to receive federal transportation funds. Any projects that come through our programs need to be in our MTP and need to be MTP compliant. And we'll hear a little bit more on the project side in a couple minutes. But we're looking at all modes of transportation. So we're looking at the region as a whole, how we're all connected, and how our transportation system facilitates those kinds of developments. So we'll be identifying priorities for projects and programs that come out of this, as well as how funding should be allocated. We're going to rely on our other planning programs. So anything from our safety program to our bike and pedestrian to our ITS, it all plugs into this program as a whole to kind of give us that holistic vision of how we can improve mobility and access for everyone in Mahoning and Trumbull County. So it covers a couple topics. This year we're focusing on these 3 as the big kind of main areas of focus. Obviously, transportation, it is a long-range transportation plan. Equity, so how are our transportation investments supporting the needs of all of our region's communities? And quality of life, so how do we recognize transportation as something that impacts people's daily lives in other ways? All of this is going to relate back to our agency's vision as a whole. So when we're talking about how we work collaboratively, how we can work to advance equitable opportunities and build robust economy across the region, everything we do in this plan is going to relate back to this and use this as its guiding vision. One of the other big elements that we want to make sure is that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is fresh off the books. So how are we planning this to coordinate well with what's coming down from the federal level? How do we make sure that our planning efforts here and the language that we're using and kind of the programs that we'll be setting up and establishing fit lock and key with that program? We don't want to be caught kind of trying to play catch up. So if we do that at the outset here now, we'll be ready for the things that come out of that plan as they come forward. So as they're still developing a lot of the NOFOs and a lot of the detail and the language from that legislation, we want to make sure we're setting up this guiding document to be able to plug right into that. And part of that is scenario planning. So this is one of the bigger aspects of public engagement, where we've put together scenarios for what 2050 could look like in the Mahoning Valley. What are the options? What are the big developments coming down the pipeline? What are the foundational kind of thought processes behind that development? What does the transportation network need to do or need to look like to facilitate that growth or those changes? So we're in the process of putting together 4 in-person scenario planning events that will be held around the communities. Still working to nail down the specific dates and times and locations for those, but one of the things we're making sure is that they're accessible to everyone and we get a wide range of participants to make sure that we're capturing a diverse voice for input for this plan. The way we've established this scenario planning work is that we've taken a look at what other MPOs are doing from around the country. Obviously we've reached out to some of our partner MPOs across the state, like NOACA, AMATS, OKI, but also taking a look kind of a little broader and seeing what are some of the other big concepts that MPOs are focusing on, especially in relation to the IIJA. How are they implementing those changes into this type of work? And bringing that all into a scenario planning process that I think we can make work for our own community and really pulls out those important elements that we can help focus on and give people a good chance to really impact the development of this document by providing their feedback. So in the next, I'd say week or so, we'll have those dates finalized, make sure that that's, dispersed far and wide so everybody has an idea of when those will be happening. And obviously, if you come across those in your email, feel free to share those out to your networks as well. That would really help us capture a lot of feedback. So what scenario planning really focuses on? Data forecasting. So we're establishing population and employment forecasts out to the year 2050. It's kind of the foundational aspect of it. We need to have good data and make sure that it's reliable so that we know what we're looking forward to. Context zones. So what does our region look like now? How do we define our region in terms of context zones? What are the regional characteristics that make sense for us and make sense moving forward? And how do we expect that to change? And those changes will turn into those scenario developments. So that's how we're identifying what the likely futures may look like. And then the workshops really help us figure out if we are correct, if we have good data, and we're using data according to best practices, we need people to tell us how we get there. What are the things that we're missing kind of at the local level, maybe some of those regional wide projects that tie into all of this? What are the things that are going to need to happen for us to get to those future scenarios? So that's really what we're looking for to get out of the workshops. It'll be fun and interactive. We've, I think, got a good system that isn't going to ask too much of people, where I think sometimes when you go out for public engagement, it's easy to ask too much and to be too detailed. Whereas I think the way that we've set this up is really contextualize everything down to a simple level and makes it easy for just your average citizen to be able to participate meaningfully and get something out of it themselves. So lastly, I'll hand it over to Stephen for project solicitation.
Thanks, Justin. As he mentioned previously, this is really not just the most important thing that we do here as Eastgate, as the MPO, but it's very important for all of you in here because this is really the first step towards project implementation. It's kind of necessary to get these project ideas onto our MTP, which then funnels into applications on our transportation improvement program, which is then what, becomes a construction project out in the field. So, really important few months here. You see up there, August 31st submittal deadline. The applications are fairly simple, just kind of a one-page application, some basic information, needing a map, a simple estimate. We don't need a certified engineer's estimate, but that estimate is necessary because we have to show that we are fiscally responsible all the way out through 2050, which you can understand is a little bit difficult to take that best guess of what prices would be. But everybody in here, all our communities expect a letter from me shortly. This will kind of detail what I need from you, how I need it. We do need a separate application for each and every project. So it is a little bit of work, but again, it's important and it's necessary as that first step. We look at this as August 31st submittal and then final presentation later this year in November and December. And, that's given a few months there for us internally to review all these applications. Some of the stuff that Justin was mentioning previously, we need to make sure that these projects are, whether they're positively or negatively affecting our communities and how they're doing it. So it's important for us to analyze that and make sure that we call that out in the plan. One other thing to tie to are those scenario planning workshops. Justin kind of brought up the idea, but this gives all the members of the community an opportunity, for what they like to see, the issues that they see, and maybe where they live, to reach out to the local leaders, the mayors, the engineers, and provide those project suggestions to you guys. So, we don't take applications to the MTP from the public, but this gives them an opportunity to work through you and get something over to us. So that's a good overview of the project solicitation process. Again, expect to see a letter with all that information and how to fill that out. August 31st deadline. And if there's any questions on this or for Justin for the whole MTP process, I'd take that.
Anyone? Questions?
So one question, what is the scenario planning platform they're using?
So we looked into a few options, but really we just kind of developed an option for ourselves. It'll be kind of survey based, where we'll have the scenarios available along with the goals of the plan itself, and ask people to match the goals to the scenarios and which they think best advance those goals. So that way we can kind of distill all that information down when we put the information together to match it up with the project solicitation and the projects that come in, so that we're matching goals to projects and making sure everything works together. So yeah, we didn't use anything advanced. I know there's a bunch of companies out there that make kind of software platforms available for this intent. It all kind of seemed like a little too much for what we needed. We were able to simplify it to keep it as basic and easy to understand for everyone.
Just give us some examples. What are some of the types of projects? Example of a project.
So it's really everything, anything that's using federal dollars, anything that it may be something that's out in 2045 that you think, hey, if we may do this, there's a chance that you won't, but this is kind of that first step. So, it's everything from your roadway resurfacing, your sidewalks, your lighting, and really we get our studies and our plans in there as well. So if you think you might study, a different section of Belmont, for example, we get that in there as well, because it's kind of identifying everything and anything.
Listen, one other question. Are the population numbers essentially fixed through the different scenarios, or do you vary assumptions on population and jobs?
So we have established kind of our benchmark population projections using census and I forget the data source, but that's the one. And then there's another data source that we use to kind of come up with our benchmark. We didn't do it specifically for the scenarios, just because I think there's too much uncertainty there to really paint that picture. What we're really going to lean heavy on for the scenarios is those context zones, to give a visual representation of what's changing.
I guess that's why it's important to participate in the scenario part of this, because to answer yours already, that the scenarios tell you, okay, well, if we have, $1 zillion and unlimited, what's our community going to look like? If we stay status quo, what's our community going to look like? And if the bottom falls out, what's our community going to look like? How are we going to, so as you move forward, in 2040, we don't know, but that's the goal, is to pick one of these so that as we pull these projects out from the MTP to the tip, kind of point to that part of it. So I guess that's why it's so important this year for those that are thinking about projects to put some effort in, because I can guarantee you that every NOFO of this discretionary $500 million IIJA funding, one of the questions is it in a MTP plan? And if you don't answer yes or no, I mean, if you don't answer yes, that's strike one. Now, I get it, we can't think of everything. Well, we'll put in, resurfacing will be a line item. We don't need, of course, we know you guys want to resurface everyone here. It's a line item, that's covered. But it's the outside of the box type projects that we need your input. We may get it from the scenario planning. We may ask you, hey, Gary, what do you think about this? We heard this up in Liberty. So again, it seems crazy. We're thinking 20, 30 years out, but there's a method to the madness and a reason. So.
Yeah, and there's certain concepts too. So the TOD study on Market Street, for example, one of the scenarios may be, what if we see increased development across the region more densely, tightly to corridors? So that may be something where we're not specifically calling out, oh, we're going to see population growth in these areas. We're just saying, hey, one of our scenarios says these are going to densify. So just kind of the context there, I think you're able to maybe paint your own picture for some of the specific numbers. But
It makes it simpler to have a set of assumed population levels, tie somehow back to the state level, and then say, given that, what are the choices, how you place jobs and people in the communities? It's a little too complicated to also vary the assumptions over that long a period of time.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's indicative of the exercise we did at our TAC and CAB last month, where we, printed out some big maps and had people take markers and post-it notes to it to let us know, where they think development's going to happen, where they want development to happen, different things that are going on across the region. So that influenced a little bit and gave us more of a local knowledge to, some of the ideas and concepts that'll go into those scenarios.
So I have a question. It's, Asheville County would love to be a part of the MPO, to be able to participate in the transportation component of this. And I know that the current regulations don't allow that. But I hear some optimistic rumors that there might be an opportunity down the road to do so. We're talking 20 and 30-year plans, and I'd love to see us find a way that we can be, grouped in with the rest of the Eastgate region to participate in the transportation projects. Is there any benefit at all, since this is planning out 20 to 30 years, to becoming involved, even though at this juncture we wouldn't qualify?
If that scenario comes true, so at some point, we would have to amend our 2050 metropolitan transportation plan to include Ashtabula. I would think that's what the requirement would be for us to do the exact same thing we're doing now for Mahoning and Trumbull County, that now you have become part of our MPO, so therefore we need to go and specifically.
We just do the exercise at that time
Yes,
to then
yes,
merge the.
Yes,
the
unfortunately, we'd love to, but we can't. We can't do any of those types of planning activities in Ashtabula.
And it's based on the urbanized area.
Yes.
So, there's quite a gap from northern Trumbull and southern Ashtabula to get to urbanized communities. So I think.
That's what they tell us coming from Cleveland too.
So
So
you're-
we're out to no man's land. We still have needs.
Okay, well, I think that's good for the MTP then. Thank you, Justin. I just wanted to, while I'm up here, give you guys a quick overview of two of the resolutions in the packet. That'll get emailed out to be voted on. First one, resolution 006. This is our surface transportation block grant program, all of our new list of recommended projects. We went through the application process earlier this year, received applications, put a recommended list together. Through our TAC and CAB, 006 in there is that full list of projects. We were able to fund, all the eligible projects that were submitted, and fit everything in our out years, 2024 to 2027. So that's what that resolution is. The other one that I have put together is 009. This was a pretty last minute addition. The way that our projects have to work, you go through that whole process, as we mentioned before, of MTP through TIP, STIP. That transportation improvement program and the statewide transportation improvement program. Projects need to be identified on there to be able to get through the process. The two Mahoning Avenue Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects that are on there. When we initially identified them, these are projects that were approved through everybody, 2.5 years ago. We had them placed out in an out year, now pulling them forward. We just need to go through this formal process to identify them on the statewide improvement program. So that's nothing new there on those two. The third one on that resolution, the bike trail up in Trumbull County. These are some additional CMAQ dollars. There was a slight adjustment in the alignment to kind of work with a piece of land, a parcel there to not hinder the development in the future. So slight adjustment increased about 800,000 on the design dollars and the construction. So that's what those two resolutions are. Any questions on either of those? Great, thank you. And here's Justin and I, our two emails for any MTP questions. Feel free to reach out.
All right, Justin and Stephen, thank you very much for your report. Next order of business is we have resolutions for passage. I'll go ahead and just read the titles on each of the resolutions so that you're aware of them, but they will be emailed out later today. Lisa will take care of that and then request your vote for the passage of these resolutions. So the first one we have is Resolution 005-2022. Amending section 208 area-wide water quality management plan to modify the Warren 201 facility planning area in accordance with the Clean Water Act. And the next one is resolution 006-2022, which Stephen just discussed here, amending fiscal year 2021 through 2024 transportation improvement program of Eastgate Regional Council of Governments to identify new surface transportation block grant program projects. And there's multiple pages there, essentially road resurfacing projects that were just referred to. And then we have resolution 007-2022 approving the state fiscal year 2023 unified planning work program of the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments. Resolution 008-2022 of Eastgate Regional Council of Governments approving the fiscal year 2023 planning grant recommendations for funding. And there's 3 planning grant projects there, totaling $38,500, which was discussed a little earlier. Resolution 009-2022, amending the fiscal year 2021 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program of the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments to identify Mahoning Avenue Phase 1, Phase 2 projects and increase the CMAQ funding on Western Reserve Greenway Phase 4 trail project, which Stephen also just discussed a couple minutes ago. And that will be all of our resolutions. Any questions on any of the resolutions for any clarification while we're here in our meeting? Okay, those will go out later today and we'd appreciate your timely response so that we can take action on those items. All right, any other open discussion, questions, comments? Anything else for our General Policy Board meeting today? Again, thank you all for your time and coming out, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Discussion, roll call, aye. Motion passed. Have a wonderful day, everybody.